The first thing I remember is the laugh, that thin, brittle laugh the platoon let out when Pellingham broke from the line and walked, slow and theatrical, across the parade ground toward the ceremonial guard. I remember it because it was my laugh too, for half a second before my stomach told me the truth. The morning was bright in that hard grey way that the Marlowe Royal Academy mornings have in late November. The parade ground was a slab of pale stone, 2 centuries of boots having polished it down to a sheen. The flagstaff at the far end held the colors of the House of Marlowe, silver and dark green, snapping in a sharp wind. 40 senior cadets stood in a single rank in front of the colors, 4 ranks deep, wool greatcoats brushed, boots so polished you could shave by them. 2 weeks from commissioning, 2 weeks from the badges of rank we had bled 3 years to earn. And at the gate side, alone, motionless, in the full ceremonial dress of the King's Guard scarlet wool tunic, brass buttons doubled in 2 columns down the chest, white belt, white gloves, the tall black bearskin with its chinstrap drawn precise across the jaw, the rifle held shoulder-high polished medals catching the light like coins, stood the man we had been told only that he was the morning's drill demonstration. He had not moved since the platoon had formed. He did not move now. Pellingham was our top cadet. I want that on the record before anything else, because it matters to what happened. He was the platoon's right marker, the swordsman of the Academy Fencing Club, the academic prize man of our intake. He was being commissioned into a county regiment whose name his family had worn for 4 generations. His father was a serving brigadier. His grandfather had commanded the academy itself, 20 years ago, before the colonel we had now. Pellingham had been raised on the parade ground the way other boys are raised on cricket pitches. He could march in his sleep, and we all knew it, and he knew that we knew it. Which is, I suppose, why he thought he could afford the joke. It began with a glance at the ceremonial guard, that quick, evaluating glance the confident give to anything they think they have already taken the measure of. Pellingham's mouth twitched. He looked sideways at Carrington, who stood next to him in the rank. Carrington, who would follow Pellingham off a cliff, half smiled back. Pellingham took 1 step forward, then another. The drill sergeant instructor on the far side of the ground was facing the colors and did not see him break ranks. The rest of us saw. Pellingham, I said under my breath. I was 3 places to his left. Pellingham, get back. He did not hear me or chose not to. He walked, with that elongated parade ground stride he could turn on and off like a faucet, past the front rank and out into the open stone in front of the ceremonial guard. Then he stopped, 10 paces short. He turned slowly with both hands on his hips to face us. He was performing. "Gentlemen," Pellingham said, loud enough for the back rank to hear, pitched in the affected drawl he used at mess dinners when he was holding court. "Observe the Tin Man." A few of the cadets near me looked at their boots. Carrington laughed. 2 more laughed because Carrington had. The brittle sound of it spread along the rank like a crack across ice. Pellingham took 2 steps to his right and faced the ceremonial guard side-on in profile to the platoon. Then he began to march. He marched the slow ceremonial step the King's Guard uses on the line, but he marched it the way a man marches it when he wants the marching to be a joke, knees too high, toes pointed too sharp, shoulders thrown back into a caricature of stillness. 5 paces, halt, about turn, slow and exaggerated. 5 paces back. "Drill instructors," Pellingham said over his shoulder loud to the platoon, "do not actually need to fight, you see. They merely need to look impressive." A handful of laughs, then nothing. Nobody else joined in. The wind moved the colors at the far end of the ground, and that was the only sound for 3 or 4 seconds. Pellingham, sensing he had lost the room, doubled down. He stopped in front of the ceremonial guard, close enough that the guard could have felt his breath if the guard had been a man who registered things like breath. He looked the guard up and down. He grinned. "Tin Man," he said again, softer now but quite audible, "drill instructors don't fight, they only pose." The guard did not move, he did not blink, he did not look at Pellingham. His eyes were fixed on a point somewhere beyond the colors at the far end of the parade ground, the way the King's Guard fixed their eyes at the gates of the palace. At nothing, at everything, at duty itself. I had felt cold up to that point, now I felt sick. Because I had seen 20 seconds before Pellingham began his march, what no one else seemed to have seen. The window on the upper walk, the one set into the limestone face of the Commandant's office, 2 stories above the parade ground. The window had been open. And in the window, behind the leaded glass, in the standing pose of a man who has been watching for a long time without intending to be seen, was the Commandant. Lieutenant Colonel Ashworth, 3 Combat Tour. A distinguished service medal he never wore on parade because he said the parade was not about him. The man whose signature, in 2 weeks, would either appear on Pellingham's commissioning scroll or not. He had been there before Pellingham broke ranks. He had heard the laugh. He had heard the word Tin Man. He had heard the joke about drill instructors. The window was empty now. I tracked it because I could not bring myself to look at Pellingham any longer. The window was empty, and then the heavy door at the base of the Commandant's tower opened, and Lieutenant Colonel Ashworth stepped out onto the upper steps of the parade ground walk. He did not hurry. The Commandant of the Marlowe Royal Academy does not hurry. He came down the 7 stone steps from the upper walk to the parade ground at the same measured pace he used for every morning inspection, his service cap precisely level, the swagger stick under his left arm, gloves in the right. His greatcoat was open. He was not in ceremonial, he was in working dress. Somehow this was worse. The drill sergeant instructor at the far end saw him first and snapped to attention with a crack you could hear across the ground. Then the rest of the staff. Then the platoon, late, scattered, ragged at the edges because we were watching Pellingham caught up and pulled itself into the brace. Pellingham went rigid. He was still standing 10 feet in front of the ceremonial guard, side on to the platoon, his last sentence, "They only pose 3 breaths old in the air." The Commandant walked across the parade ground, 40 yards. The walk took, I think, 15 seconds. Nobody on the ground moved. The colors at the far end snapped twice in the wind. The Commandant walked past the platoon. He did not look at us. He walked past Pellingham. He did not look at Pellingham either. He kept walking and he stopped 4 paces short of the ceremonial guard. Then Lieutenant Colonel Ashworth, Commandant of the Marlowe Royal Academy, Distinguished Service Medal 3 Combat Tour, did something I have not been able to put out of my mind in the 2 weeks since. He came to attention. He brought his heels together with the clean, deliberate snap of a young subaltern at his first parade. He raised his right hand, slowly, palm forward, the gloved fingertips reaching the brim of his service cap precisely level. He held the salute. The ceremonial guard moved for the first time in 40 minutes. He brought his rifle from the shoulder arms position to the present, 3 movements, each one as crisp as a clock tick, the white-gloved hand cutting up the air. The blade of the bayonet caught the morning light. He returned the Commandant's salute with the rifle present, held it for the count, and then with the same 3 movements brought the rifle back to the shoulder. He had still not looked at Pellingham. He had still not looked at any of us. He had only moved when the senior officer on the ground saluted him. The Commandant lowered his hand. He did not look at the ceremonial guard either. He turned slowly on his heel, the immaculate ceremonial pivot the Academy spent 6 months teaching every intake, and he faced the platoon. He clasped his gloves behind his back. His swagger stick was still under his left arm. Then he spoke. He spoke quietly, but the wind carried the words clean across the stone, and I do not think there was a cadet in the rank who did not hear every syllable. "Gentlemen," the Commandant said, "I would like to introduce you to a man some of you, I see, have not yet had the privilege of meeting." A long pause, nobody breathed. "This is Regimental Sergeant Major Halloran. He is the Master Instructor of Drill at the Marlowe Royal Academy. He has been on a 6-month detached posting to the Household Battalion, where, among other duties, he has been training the King's Guard in the very ceremonial step. You have just watched a cadet of this academy mock in front of his platoon." The Commandant let that sit for perhaps 3 full seconds. The cold of the stone was coming up through my boots. I do not remember if I was breathing. "Master Instructor Halloran," the Commandant continued, "taught the slow march to your drill sergeant instructor. He taught it to your platoon commander. He taught it to me 23 years ago when I stood where you are standing now." A small movement somewhere in the rear rank. A cadet, I think, who had simply lost the will to keep his shoulders square. "Master Instructor Halloran," the Commandant said, "returns to the Marlowe Royal Academy this morning from detached duty as your senior drill assessor. In 2 weeks, on the 8th of December, he will conduct and grade the commissioning drill of every cadet in this rank." I did not look at Pellingham. I could not. I heard 3 places to my right the sound of a man taking a single, hard breath in through his teeth, and then nothing. "Gentlemen," the Commandant said, "I suggest that you all take, in the time remaining to you on this ground this morning, a long, hard look at what discipline actually means. Discipline is not the absence of fight. Discipline is the choice not to swing the fist you are perfectly capable of swinging. Master Instructor Halloran has, in 31 years of service, more reasons to swing than any of you will ever have in your careers, however long. He does not. That is not weakness. That is the cost of the cloth he wears. The commandant let the silence run. Then he turned with the same parade ground pivot and faced the ceremonial guard again. He came to attention. He saluted a second time. The master instructor returned it, rifle to the present, 3 crisp movements, hold, return to the shoulder. The commandant turned away. He walked at the same measured pace back across the parade ground, up the 7 stone steps and into the commandant's tower. The door closed behind him. Nobody moved. Master Instructor Halloran had not in any of this looked at Pellingham. He still did not. He was again the unbroken vertical line he had been when the platoon first formed. Scarlet tunic, white gloves, bearskin, eyes forward. The wind moved the bayonet's tassel very slightly, and that was the only movement on the ground. It was the drill sergeant instructor eventually who broke the spell. He called the platoon to the slope, called us to the order, called the morning drill to resume. We resumed. We marched the box twice. We halted, faced front, presented to the colors. I could not tell you a single movement I made. I was inside the still-ringing silence of the commandant's words. Pellingham was returned to the line in the dismissal, quietly, no ceremony, the drill sergeant instructor at his elbow saying nothing he had not said 100 times. Pellingham took his place in the rank. He did not look at any of us. He did not look at the ceremonial guard. I do not think he was capable of looking at anything at all. We were dismissed at 9:10. The platoon broke and walked in scattered small groups back across the parade ground toward the mess. I walked alone. Halfway across, I heard behind me the crisp tap of a single set of ceremonial boot heels, Master Instructor Halloran turning finally from his post, walking toward the staff entrance at the base of the commandant's tower. I stopped, I turned. He passed me at 6 paces, close enough that I could see, for the first time, his face under the bearskin's brim. He was perhaps 55. The skin around his eyes was creased the way men's skin creases when they have stood in weather for a long time. He saw me looking. He gave me, without breaking step, the small, exact nod that a senior gives a junior who has remembered to come to attention. I came to attention. I do not remember choosing to. He went into the tower, the door closed. I learned, later in the day, what the rest of the platoon eventually learned through the academy's informal channels. The master instructor had requested a private word with the commandant before lunch. He had been heard by the commandant's clerk to say only one sentence about Pellingham. He had said it quietly, the clerk reported, the way the master instructor said everything. Grade him on his drill, Colonel, not on his pride. That was all. The master instructor did not lodge a complaint. He did not request Pellingham's withdrawal from the commissioning roll. He did not, that anyone ever heard, refer to the parade ground a second time in any conversation on any subject. He returned that afternoon to the Academy's drill office and resumed his post as if 6 months had not passed and as if nothing had happened that morning at all. 2 weeks later, on the 8th of December, our intake was commissioned. Master Instructor Halloran conducted the drill, walking the rank at exactly the same measured pace the commandant had used. He inspected every cadet. He graded every cadet. He paused in front of Pellingham for perhaps a second longer than he paused in front of the rest of us, looked him in the eye, said nothing, marked his card and moved on. Pellingham passed his commissioning drill. He passed it cleanly on the technical movements the way the master instructor had said he should be graded. Pellingham received his commission with the rest of us. He shook the commandant's hand. He shook the master instructor's hand last in the line. The handshake, by every account, was the strongest grip Pellingham had ever offered any man. He has never spoken to me, to any of us, that I know of about the morning of the parade ground. He is a captain now in his father's regiment, and by every report a careful one. The cadets in our intake who saw him on the day still talk about it, sometimes in the way men talk about a thing they cannot quite explain to themselves, late at night with the regimental glass between them and the door. We do not talk about it to others. It is not a story we tell. It is a thing that happened to us on a parade ground in front of a man in scarlet wool who did not move. I think about it most often, I find, when I am training my own platoon now. I think about it when one of my young soldiers, sharp, confident, certain of his measure of the world, starts to take the wrong sort of look at the wrong sort of man. I think about it when I am tempted myself to mistake stillness for absence. The master instructor did not speak that morning. He did not raise his hand. He did not, by anything he did, defend himself. He stood. The commandant came down the 7 steps and did the defending for him with a salute and a sentence, and went back up the 7 steps and closed the door. I have come in the years since to understand that this is what the cloth means. That the man who has the most reasons to swing is the man you should expect to swing last. That the iron in a uniform is in the choice not to use it. That the men we will follow are the men who have already mastered themselves so thoroughly that there is nothing left for the world to provoke. Master Instructor Halloran is still at the Marlowe Royal Academy. He will retire next year, the Gazette said last month. The intake of next September will be the last he sees through to commissioning. They do not know yet, those boys, what they are walking into. They will stand on the same pale stone. They will form the same single rank. He will be there in his scarlet and his bearskin on some morning that none of them is expecting. And if any one of them has the sense his father gave him, he will look at the man and he will see, before he has the chance to make my friend Pellingham's mistake, what we did not see in time. He will see the only thing that ever mattered. He will see the discipline. He will see the man who does not move. And he will, I hope, stay in the line.